you drive your car 10,000 times a year, what is the probability that you're gonna get in an accident? You know, and that's the issue that you need to keep in mind is I'm gonna tell you right now, the vast majority of people do not have the expertise, even in the zoo world, to put in these pits.
In rebuttal, we need to have increased accountability and tracking. So, Kristen mentioned something, and the first I've heard about, you know, the cauterization. Is anybody practicing basically like no, it's not like
That's
Well,
ancient technique.
well,
No, is it?
And I was gonna ask that question after we got through this, but let me just ask it. You guys mull it over for a second. But outside of pit tags and photographs, are there other techniques? Okay, so hold on to that for a second, Eugene.
I really appreciate everybody's comments and concerns, especially the majors in terms of the perception of accountability that needs to be delivered. From firsthand experience, you know, I've advocated this and I've taught it that you can raise and reproduce and sell venomous animals without having to touch them safely. I think it's conclusive amongst everybody. Pit tag is a great way, but it should not be the only way. And I think that's what everybody's pushing back here. Okay, pit tag, clipping, yeah, the snakes are gonna shed, even if you cauterize them, doesn't matter, they're gonna shed, it's gonna heal. There's enough unique characteristics to show good intent to be held to a higher level than anybody else without creating a very, dangerous slippery slope here. I mean, the tier system, we're talking about it, but it's not real yet. It may or may not be, so it's out there. I mean, yes, we're talking about it. But we've been talking about pit tagging for 10, 12, 15 years in this agency, going back to the species of such concern and all the other stuff. So it's already on the books. It's not a new thing. It does have its fallacies, and, it's critical mass. I mean, we've seen ball pythons lay eggs that were pit tagged, with a chip in the egg, and medically done by a licensed veterinarian, not a veterinarian, from the University of Florida, maybe made a mistake, that's beside the point. Wasn't from the University of Florida. Well, one of those guys should be here, but that's just my prejudicial comments of what it's worth. But regardless, I mean, everybody has a tremendous amount of justification and validity, but it's not gonna be one way. It's gotta be a compilation of different things. There's gotta be some room for noise in the system. And I think when the public, legislators, commissioners understand that we are trying to tackle a very serious issue, I don't I don't want to hurt the animal, the perception of hurting an animal, we don't want to go there. So I think we're all pretty much on the same page, but to limit it to just pit tags, we're going to get into the weeds and you're going to get a massive pushback. Because what I'm concerned about is if people see that as the only way, they'll just drop out of the picture for a year or two, they'll be underground and you'll never catch them.
Okay, let me go.
Yeah, so I actually have a suggestion. I mean, there are issues with the pit tags in terms of permanency, the damage to the animal, cauterization is going to be sort of a pain thing that a lot of us doing research are going to have trouble getting that type of thing approved. There are record-keeping issues with pit tagging. You have to report that. You have to report it accurately. Right, and I'm assuming that all of this is about those rare cases where you have to link a particular animal to a particular researcher. And so I'm a geneticist, and so I look at this as being kind of a DNA thing. You can change your gene sequences. And so it's relatively easy to get genetic samples on any of these animals. A shed will work, a blood sample will work. These are things that don't require contact, and they're things that you can store. You throw them in a freezer, they're there. If an animal escapes, you have the animal that you've been found, you have the samples in the freezer of that species, and you can link those back. Now, on a case-by-case rate, it's more expensive, but you're not going to be doing it a lot. And so, for me, having a freezer of tissues that you can't take it, you can't cheat on that, you can't do anything, and you can get those samples without touching the animal.
Okay.
Good point.
All right, so we've got that. Genetic samples. Whoa, everybody went up at the same time. Let me go with you first. Go ahead.
I just want to add, I think to help protect things, there's a couple spots in here where it says permanent, and that's probably, if we could delete that or change that word. Because for the folks you're trying to look at, if they're sitting there arguing, well, it's permanent, well, no, it's migrated, it's disappeared. So probably something in there that these have to be maintained, updated, and kept current.
Okay, let's make sure she captures that really quick
Okay.
while I move on. Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that there, and that's
Is there another one you want?
the easiest thing to do
There's
would
something.
have a picture in your folder, and then a shed skin of that animal. And so you never have to lay your hand on that animal to get that shed skin. You have your photograph, you have the shed skin in there. It doesn't have to have any special thing. And then all you do is if there's an escape, you gotta submit your sheds, because it's a simple thing. Darren and I could do it. It's a good way to make money.
I'm thinking there's a business here.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
So, okay, so I've got you and then, oh, wait, I got you and then, and then,
Okay, so me now?
yes, first,
Okay.
yes.
Of all the points that I've made and that I've heard, and John just really keyed in on it, the most important aspect of pit tags is going to be that you cannot say you have to permanently identify with a pit tag, because even if the success rate is 95%, it's not 100%. And I think everybody will agree with that. All of the research that's available out there shows that at least some of these animals lose their pit tags. So I'm concerned about us approving a regulation change that says shall be permanently implanted with a pit tag when all of the evidence suggests that that's not possible. So we're setting at least some folks up for failure.
Okay,
Okay.
you good, so, Rick?
Yeah, I've had 2 occasions where I've had to deal with escapes. One was with a known pit tag owner, the other one was completely anonymous. The first one, the anonymous one was an escaped crocodile we caught. We were able to find a pit tag in it. And with that number, I was able to contact the manufacturer of that pit tag. I was able to trace that animal through 3 different facilities and found out where it was last sold, and found out who that crocodile belonged to, and made a successful case against them for the escape. With respect to the cobra that had escaped in Orlando, I had scanned that cobra about 7 months beforehand and already had that number in my records. When the cobra was caught, I scanned it again, and now I'm able to confirm who the owner is successfully. With respect to the migrations issues, I have never scanned an animal and said, well, it's only allowed to be in the bottom third, so that's the only place I'm going to scan it. I scan from nose to tail, top to bottom, side to side, until I can find it, because I know they move. On those occasions, we have encountered where I know animals have been scanned in the past, and I've located a pit tag, and then 2 years down the road, there's no longer a pit tag in it, and they have documentation where you're down the road. Normally, knowing that technology is not flawless, and absent branding or tattooing and making it permanent, we have to accommodate for understanding that technology is not flawless, and then usually give them a 30-day window to reinsert a pit tag. And coming full circle back to photographs, except for probably Ed Casano, the professional photographer that he is, and the pictures he takes, a lot of people I deal with, when they want to show me a photograph, is something on their cell phone that they snap with their smartphone and say, oh, look here, this is the differentiation of this animal from every other specimen in that species. And I look at their picture, first as poor quality, and secondly, I don't see what they're showing me. They see it. I have no clue what it is. And if I can't look at that animal, whatever photographic characteristic they're trying to present to me, if I can't see it, then that photograph is meaningless, kind of pit tag. And then the pit tag rule has been around since '08. So I assume y'all, if you don't have a specific animal that has some kind of aberrant pattern on it or something, y'all been pit tagging your animals. We haven't had a lot of bites in 8 years. I don't see where that would change.
So I want to speak to the genetic thing. I love genetics, so it's like one of those things I love to read about still. It's an amazing technology. I think the challenge would be that if an owner kept samples of it and then they had lost stuff, who would it be incumbent upon to run the genetic analysis? And would it have to go to a private facility? Or would it be incumbent upon our agency to have to run those genetic tests and get the stuff? So there's a lot of cost to that, and the way that you're setting it up, it would be incumbent on the agency to incur those costs to actually identify the animal. And that would be a cost that I'm not really sure we could absorb easily.
Okay, hold on.
That would be a concern of mine using that.
I've got the major, and then Tony, sorry. Major, Tony. Major first.
I wanted to just address the permanently affixed or permanently whatever language we did. Even though it says permanently, the investigators are gonna use discretion. So I'm sure there's a study out there that somebody can find about a percentage of pit tags that, you know, do migrate, do come out. And if you've got, let's say, just for simple math, you know, it's 10%. There's a 10% failure rate of the placement of a pit tag. And we come into your facility and you've got 100 snakes and one gets scanned, but there's not a pit tag, you're getting a ticket. No. They're gonna scan now. Of the 100, 50 don't have them, which is way out of line of the general effectiveness of pit tag and loss. Probably gonna get a ticket, you know. So keep that in mind. We say permanently, and not that we're gonna go that way, but they have discretion. They're not just gonna wand one snake and say, no, press hard 5 copies. You know, they're gonna say, okay, there's one, go to the next box. There's 2, go to the next box. Okay, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, you probably can get a ticket.
Okay,
So just keep that in mind.
let me go with Tony, and then I'll go get you after a couple. They've got a couple people in front of you.
Okay, got a couple of questions. Darren, about how much per sample does it usually cost to sequence for something like this to do an identification?
And maybe Chris can provide some feedback. I mean, it would depend on the genetic test you're gonna use. If you wanted to use something that didn't require sequencing, AFLP, something like that.
I mean, Sean just asked me that, and I threw $100 on the table.
$100.
And that would be for coating the snake that's at issue and the shed skin?
And probably some other control samples.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
no,
it's
it's
not bad.
And fairly cheap, but if they had to do it, to answer your thing, if they had to do it, I would put the cost back on them.
Here's the thing, put it in the rule that basically the cost of the genetic sample would be incumbent on the owner of the animal if there was an escapement. If they were held liable, that they found that was their animal and everything, they're responsible for the cost associated.
How often would that kind of test have to be run realistically? I mean, how many
Exactly.
escapees
I
do
mean,
we
we've
have?
had 2 escapes, right, in the last, what was it, like 10 years?
Looking for help.
I don't know the exact number. but I'm
$20 a year
As far
doesn't
as
seem too bad.
cost, even if we had 10 snakes, that's $1,000 over a pretty long period based on that. It's really not a huge cost on FWC, even if you guys were the ones to pay for it, but if we did hold people responsible, it's not a huge cost.
Eugene would probably cover the cost for it.
Gee, but okay, let's-
I think we have to with FSU and FWC, free analysis.
Okay, well,
Hold on, I don't lose control. Hold on a second, keep going.
I still got a couple more things. You spoke to the fact that you keep the pit tag numbers that you scanned on hand and everything, but that's not the case with all inspectors in the state. You know, some inspectors do not even go in and scan the animals, they just look at the number that's on the card. And right now, it's not mandated by rule to maintain those numbers on record for you guys. It's mandated to keep it at the facility, but no one keeps it on hand, all right?
But hold on, so the pushback is,
It is required to be kept
At the
By you or the
facility.
facility.
by the facilities.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I'm
saying.
saying, so he's saying by you guys, so you
So
have.
you're going above and beyond by
There
doing
is
that, that's what I'm
a
saying.
portion on our reports to list all the pit tags.
I've never seen
Not
that
in
or
our,
provided.
not in your report, in our database. So if I go out and get waffled by a FedEx truck tomorrow, Rick goes into your facility the next month, here's my pit tags, okay, cool, he can also look and make sure.
But is that when you guys actually go in and scan an animal, or are you supposed to write that down while you're at the facility and keep it on hand? Like that, just any animal has pit tags in
Either or, like I said, on our database, we've got a section that lists all of our pit tags.
it? You have a section that requires it.
This is probably statute that you maintain.
We
Where's
maintain
that
that. Is it required for you to keep those pit tag numbers when you go and do the inspections?
For us, I don't think it is.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get at. There's no accountability there for the pit tag other than saying the individual has to keep it at the facility. So, and the last thing I'm just gonna make a quick point on, you mentioned some individuals use cell phone photos and everything like that that may not identify the animal. Well, they haven't met the rule at that point. All right, you go in there, that's a violation. If they are not able to provide photos that can suitably identify that animal properly, it's a violation of the rule. So if they are following the rule appropriately, it should be able to identify the animal
But it don't pit tag.
if they don't pit tag it.
Okay, can we make sure we catch that?
Utilize what we have on board.
Okay. All right, whoa. Yeah, we hit this, I think we probably need to move on. But there was, Kristen, you have one last comment, or?
No, I just wanted to, I guess like if I'm thinking about a probability standpoint on the whole, it only costs $100 a sample. If you're a facility that has 15 snakes and you lose one, all of those snakes are gonna have to be tested. So it wouldn't just be that individual that you think you lost, because then you have to figure out whether or not, which one it was. Because that's the only way you're identifying the animal.
But it still comes down to how many escapes have happened. So
Right,
it's not
if you have one
frequent.
escape, but it's from a facility that has a ton of snakes, that would get jacked up.
But hold on,
That's the only way you're
following your logic.
investigating.
I'm not following your
Oh,
logic.
wait.
So what we're saying is if you're only using like the samples in the freezer to identify that animal, and you've lost one, and you've got 10 snakes, and the only way we can actually go back and figure out which snake it was is the genetic sample, wouldn't you have to test all of them?
But
Only
hang on a
if
minute,
it's
if you find a gaboon viper in the wild in this person's vicinity, right? You're going to cross-reference with a sample that's there of the missing snake.
Missing.
You have one in hand, you don't go in and say, we have this one, but we want to find out what the genetics are on the other 17 in your collection.
Right.
So, I'm not following your logic. You're only testing the animal that was found, and now you're trying to match it back to the empty cage and the genetic sample that's in the freezer logged under that thing. You're not testing all the other ones because you know they exist there.
All right, hold on. Go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, I know, I think that's actually a good point, though. If you have, say, 15 gaboons, right, you report one is missing, or they find one, I mean, it may be possible, essentially, to shift around and say, well, I'm missing this one or something, and so that's not necessarily this one. I think I get where you're going, is that, I mean, yeah, obviously, you should know which animal, you should have your animals caged separately, and you should know, okay, well, this cage is now empty, and so you should have a specific one to test, but it would be easy to
Switch
fudge test a
them,
little bit.
switch them around to cover up.
You cross-reference your.
All right, so that's a valid point. Let's get that captured. And, let me go with Rick, and then I got you. Oh, Ken. Ken, got me before? Okay, you're gonna have to keep your hands, folks, you guys are gonna have to keep your hands up a little bit longer, because my brain is literally not, yeah. So Ken first, yeah.
I'm not going to add to the scientific talk here, but I think Ohio already requires a pit tag of all captive snakes and turtles. So we already have a state out there that requires that. That's not true.
Are you talking venomous snakes?
Snakes in general.
No.
It says
It's
all
constrictor
captive.
snakes over 12 feet and then venomous snakes.
We live in Florida, right? This is Florida.
Yeah, but he's talking about precedent, right?
Let's get Florida.
So,
And that's, we can
so,
talk,
but that's.
we can talk
so
about
one
Ohio
area
the
is
rest of
not
the day
accurate.
and the problems with Ohio, but
Okay.
we're not here to do that.
So, Rick, and then you.
I just want to come back to the genetics real quick. If we found, or a neighbor found a gaboon viper, to use that species, in their backyard, and it wasn't pit tagged, and we were going to use a genetic testing to try and determine where that animal came from, if I go to the most closest licensed venomous keeper who has gaboon vipers, I will have to sample every single snake in his collection to find out the genetics, because if all I'm looking for is an empty cage, and in the course of one day, he goes and gets himself another venomous reptile, so there's no empty cages. I have to sample every animal, every sample he's got.
Okay,
So if he has 30 sheds, because I have, in order
Hold
for me to determine it came from his collection, I would have to find a shed in his,
Well, you're assuming that what you found is a progeny from those. It could be a genetically distinct animal, so sampling the whole collection would have no.
good, that's exactly right. So the genetics, going down the genetic avenue has no value, it's not valid.
Hold on a minute. So, I promised Tony next, yeah.
Okay, so first off, even if you have to sample all the snakes in that collection, it still ultimately will likely be less cost prohibitive, long run, than people doing pit tags on every single animal that they have. Even if you have to test every single one, especially with large businesses that are dealing with hundreds or thousands of snakes every year.
All right, valid point, you capture that, Natalie?
Yes, but I didn't capture what he said about the genetics maybe being obsolete, if you want me to get that.
All right, hold on a second. Sean, go ahead.
So I think we're missing the standard that Darren set up, and the standard was that a shed skin is taken and it is kept basically on file at that facility with, right, that animal's whatever cage number, whatever the cage card, whatever the identification is. So you have, let's say if you have 17 baboon vipers in your collection, each one of those has a standard, right? A shed skin that is coupled with that animal, right? So when you come back, let's say this animal shows up, you show up at their facility, you have an inventory sheet. You cross-reference the inventory sheet with what's still in their facility, right? If there's a variance, you say, where is this animal, right? And if they have not done a disposition on this animal, where is your record? Where is your shed skin standard for this animal that's in your inventory and you have not dispositioned? And then you cross-reference. If they have it, easy cross-reference. If they don't, A, they're in violation because they dispositioned a snake and they did not disposition a snake, right? Or they did and they don't have record of it, violation, right? And where is your standard skin that you are mandated to have? They either have it and you cross-reference, or they don't and they're still in violation, right?
Okay, hold on. So I'm hearing a bunch of stuff, and what I heard from, what I heard from Rick was, though, that if a person loses a snake, and they know they're in trouble, and they get another snake quickly to replace it, how do we know that any snake is missing, right? So I guess photographs, other things outside of pit
It's
tag.
no different than any of the other records, though. I mean, it's like I said before, whether it's a pit tag, photograph, anything, you can dump it and change it to whatever snake it is, regardless.
All right, let me, Ken, and then the major, and then am I missing anybody? And then we really need to move on from this one, so, Ken.
Well, right now, Tony's absolutely true. We don't, unless we scan an animal, and I don't document it on our database unless I scan it. I don't take Tony's number and write it down in my database unless I scanned it and verified that that number's accurate. So, but it's not only about escapes. It keeps on being mentioned that there's this nefarious underground venomous reptile keepers that are unlawfully keeping venomous. We're to ensure that the people with licenses aren't supplying this nefarious group as well. So I'll go in there and scan a pit tag to make sure your pit tag is accurate to what reflects on your inventory. And I've done it before where I scanned a snake and it didn't have a pit tag, and they have a pit tag number. He goes, oh, well, it ended up being a different snake, and he basically lied to me saying that he had a snake that was previously pit tagged. And sold that snake to someone. He didn't have a record of it because he sold it.
Okay, but so it worked. The system worked.
Yeah, but he's
not in violation.
With a pit tag,
With a pit
it
tag.
worked.
Okay, so why wouldn't it work the other way?
And with the 5% being lost, it's still up to the keeper. If that
5%
transponder has passed,
We're
have to-
talking about genetic samples.
they have to
22
re-pit tag
Not
their
5%.
snakes.
Snakes.
22 to 25%.
A pit tag's lost.
In
I
snakes.
think 25 is very high.
Well, that's what the science says, so I don't know what you're going on, but.
All right, hold on, the major, go ahead.
And the genetics are all, you guys keeping sheds and this and that, saying this shed goes with that. Remember, you guys are the top of the top. You would never do anything nefarious or wrong or violate any rule or policy. But all that concept is based on the honor system.
So is the pit tag.
No, we know if a pit tag's in it or not. We don't know if you say, show me the shed for that snake. And you go, okay, here's the drawer, here it is, here's the picture from the phone, and this, yeah, that belongs. Unless we test it to verify that you're telling us the truth, we don't know.
But the record of the pit tag is what I'm saying.
The pit tag, if we scan a snake, we know it's tagged. If you've got this, we're going on this genetic system, right, and you say, that shed belongs to that snake.
I got you.
Without us spending the $100 to test it, we don't know. And, you know, we've got a burden of proof to carry in court, okay? And we have to meet that obligation. So I get it. I mean, genetics is technology, and it's no doubt you could nail that snake to that shed. But in order for us to do an accurate inventory, we would have to genetically test each shed, take a sample from the snake, and say, yes, he's keeping his sheds with his snakes.
Okay.
Just putting that out there.
All right, so I've got two more, and then I have to move on, because we're never going to get done today. So I've got Sarah in the back, and then Sean, and then we've captured a whole bunch of stuff for you guys for them to consider. I think there's some really good valid points on all of it, so go ahead.
I have a two-pronged question, first for law enforcement and secondly for the geneticists in the room. For the investigators who are out doing these site visits and inspections, what kind of timeline, what kind of turnaround are you looking at as far as when you need to identify a particular individual snake and how quickly that needs to happen for a variety of investigation types you might be looking at? Secondly, from a geneticist standpoint, how fast is your turnaround for looking at some of these DNA samples? Can you provide the information that's needed for law enforcement in a timely fashion?
72 hours is what they're required to do right now, the big tag and that new acquisition.
But I mean, as far as obtaining, so let's say we go the genetic route as a way to identify these snakes, would that be a quick enough turnaround time for law enforcement to do their job? To identify a snake that's
I know a little bit about genetics, but let's have the genetic.
Yeah, I mean, and say at the FSU core facilities, I mean, you could easily get it done within a week, no problem, probably.
a week.
So
Depending on-
five business days or
Is
7
that
days?
fast enough?
5 business days?
But the problem is with genetics, I can't look at that snake and say, okay, that genome that he has for that snake is that snake, without a pit tag or a good enough photograph. So genetics is not
Yeah.
a very good.
I mean, I guess I would comment on that you're right, that for the day-to-day identification of the animals, it's not good, but when you absolutely need to know this animal and this animal, this shed and this animal are the same thing, it's your best bet. So it's great for those rare cases like an escape where, if you have to meet, actual legal requirements, burden of proof and all of this, it's good for that, but not the day-to-day identification. Certainly.
Okay, all right. So
That's why I think it should be pictured.
can you hold it, or you want to, really quickly, this is it, bam, cutting you off, that's what's coming.
So let's say we agree pit tags are the for law enforcement, right? For your burden of proof, for your trail.
It's a part of it.
Of crumbs, right? It's better than anything else.
It's not the only reason why we're asking for it.
Right, so that still doesn't take out the fact that it would be requiring several hundred people to do a procedure that they're unqualified to do.
Okay.
And putting them at risk by doing this procedure. And all of this really goes away if we were to do what we discussed last time and put secondary confinement for all the animals, because that's really what we're talking about, right? That's what the commission kind of tasked you guys to do, is how do we prevent these escapes? Pit tags will not prevent escapes, they won't. That pit tag, unless it blows the head off the snake as it goes out the door, is not going to prevent
Don't give them
escape.
any ideas.
Right.
So let's make sure we write that down.
Right, so, secondary confinement for all of these species, which is what we talked about last time, will do far more to preclude escapes than any other measure.
Okay. We need to take a break. Okay, so let's take a break, and then we really need to move on. If you have something,
It's just a quick comment, and well, more of a question.
so let's go ahead and take a break. Go ahead, do say Lord.
How many times has there been an escaped animal that you have not been able to link to the owner? Has that happened?
Well, the question, how many escapes do we not know about? You can't answer that question without the other.
But I'm saying, that has been an issue. Has it happened where you guys have not been able to prosecute an individual because you were not able to link the snake to the owner?
course.
Yes, it has.
And not just with snakes, but with
No, I'm asking about venomous
Then
snakes.
about venomous reptiles.
Has there been a court case where you guys haven't been able to prosecute? Okay, I mean,
I don't think there's ever been a
court
case.
case.
I don't think there's ever been an investigation or IUP.
Yeah, okay. Yes, sir.
Really quick.